Welcome back, everybody. On this World Refugee Day, we are focusing on the fiery controversy over separating kids from their parents at our southern border. Last week, we learned that some 200 people, including asylum seekers and parents separated from their children, were sent here to the Northwest to a federal detention center in SeaTac. And just moments ago, President Trump announced he plans to sign an executive action that would end the administration's policy of separating families crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. Today, we learn more about this complicated asylum process from somebody who's worked extensively with refugees and asylum seekers. Director of Refugees Northwest, Beth Farmer, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So something has just happened, but we don't know what this executive order will say yet or what exactly it will do, so we're going to have to wait on that. But help us just understand this process. What is asylum and how does the process work?
Well, the asylum process has basically been historically part of our nation's commitment to human rights. So asylum seekers, they come to the United States, they ask for protection and sanctuary. They basically claim that they cannot return home because of grave fear of harm, being jailed, tortured, and even killed. And then they go through a very, very long and involved process to determine if that claim is true or not. Sometimes they spend a year or more even in detention facilities just waiting for a hearing.
Is it legal? Is this, I know we have international agreements about this. Do we have federal laws?
We do have U.S. laws about this. We have both. We are part of international agreements and there are U.S. laws. And if the claim is proven to be true, people get to establish and build a life in the United States. If the judge determines that the claim is not true, then people are deported.
They're deported at that point. Now, your organization facilitates mental health examinations, evaluations for use in court, and also trains physicians to do medical exams. So you've heard a lot of these stories of moms, dads, people coming from Central America in particular right now. What do they tell you about what they're fleeing?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I have been doing this work about 12 years. I have worked with people from the Congo, Afghanistan, Iraq, genocide survivors from Rwanda, and I think most people in the United States don't know how dire the situation is in Central America. Many of the people that I have worked with and heard their stories talk about really horrific things. People being hung from light posts and killed as warning to other people. Young boys, 11, 12, 13 years old, held down and forcibly branded by gangs. One young man I worked with, his father was decapitated and dismembered in front of him because as a warning to the family. So really horrifically violent, terribly violent, horrific situations.
Now, I know that Northwest Immigrants' Rights Project is working with these people who are in SeaTac, who have been taken there. What do we know about them? Are those mostly asylum seekers?
You know, my last conversation, which was last night with Northwest Immigrant Rights Project, they think that about at least a quarter of the people that they've interviewed have had their children forcibly taken away from them, and virtually all of them would meet the claim for asylum. So they believe that virtually all of the people being held there have a protection claim for asylum.
So if they cross the southern border, or that's where the family was taken in, why are they up here?
Well, it's interesting the way that immigration and detention works. They put you wherever there's an open bed. And in many of the cases when we are down at the Northwest Detention Center or working with asylum seekers that are in detention, they don't even know what state they're in, much less what city they're in. They've been moved in the middle of the night to another place where there's simply an open bed.
Okay. I'm sure you've heard this recording. A whistleblower gave a recording of the kids being separated from parents at a facility to ProPublica, and they released it to the press. We don't need to listen to a lot of it to get the idea, but here's a few seconds. So, as a social worker, what effect does this have on kids?
So, I've been a mental health clinician for a long time, but first and foremost, I'm a mother. I'm a parent of 3 wonderful girls. And so these are just horrifying audio images, or horrifying audio to hear. As a mental health clinician, what we know is that attachment is everything that forms the basis for people's identity and their ability to attach in the future and be resilient in the future. Forcibly tearing children away from their parents is really, as you know, every major medical and psychological association has said, is a trauma that many children won't be able to recover from and will leave lifelong impacts on them. And I believe it was the American Psychiatric Association that even said it was a form of child abuse.
We are seeing some pictures now that, by the way, are pictures that were released by the government. They're handouts from the government. No reporters have gone in to take photos by themselves. We only recently found out where little kids are, and we've seen no photos of them and no photos of the girls. We don't quite know where they are. So I'm wondering what happens now, even if there's an executive order saying we're not going to do this anymore. We have parents in some facilities, kids moved someplace else in some cases. We know that some of these kids have gone off to Michigan and they're not all in Texas at this point. So from what you know about HHS and about the asylum process and deportation, all the rest, what's likely to happen to try to get these people back together? You know, and here's the one picture that was smuggled out of a facility. This is also an unauthorized photo.
You know, Margaret, I think one of the most concerning and horrifying things about this is no one really knows. Senators and elected officials and attorney generals across the United States have been asking that question, and there doesn't seem to be a clear policy, much less procedures for how to reunite families. We know there's at least one case where a mother's been deported back to her home country, and her child is still here, and she doesn't know how to get that child back. So I think the fact that there is no clear answer that anyone in the administration or a position of authority can give is deeply, deeply concerning.
There is, I understand, one person in CTAC who says, just let me have my child back, I'll go back, just let me go, and we don't know yet what's happened to her.
We know that she is still detained. We know that she is still detained, and I think when I've talked to all of the lawyers, they have said that 201, the people that they have interviewed whose children have been taken from them, you know, their first priority is, where is my child? How is my child? When can I talk to my child? When can I see my child? Everything else has gone out the window at that point because they are so deeply concerned about their children. And I think it's also important to note that one of the reasons that people fled is to give their children a better life. People make this horrifying journey because staying is even more horrifying.
Well, it's not over, even though there has been some progress this morning in terms of clarifying what's going to happen. Beth, thank you for the work that you do and for helping us to understand a little better today. I would invite you to please visit our website for more information about Refugees Northwest and other resources to get information, including KIND, Kids in Need of Defense, and Northwest Immigrants' Rights Project. That will be on our website. I'll put it out on social media as well, and we'll be right back.